Hi, I'm Karl, and I like filmmaking. You know, nowadays, the term filmmaking technically isn't accurate in many cases. Since the beginning of the 2010s, most so-called films have been shot and projected on digital video, which means when you think about it, most films could more accurately be called videos. This isn't always the case, however. Believe it or not, some movies are still shot on celluloid film for a myriad of reasons. Some longtime filmmakers, such as Quentin Tarantino and Steven Spielberg, still prefer shooting on film for sentimental reasons, and some movies are still shot on film for technical or artistic reasons. Another reason why some still prefer shooting on film is the process. Of course, digital video is cheaper and easier to work with, but in the minds of many filmmakers, this isn't necessarily a good thing. Film is more difficult to work with for many reasons, most notably that there's no playback button and you have to wait for the film to be developed before you can tell if your footage is any good. But many believe that this added difficulty forces the cast and crew to really be on the ball and not take the convenience of modern technology for granted. There are four main types, or gauges, of motion picture film distinguished by their width measured in millimeters: 8mm, 16mm, 35mm, and 70mm. 8mm film produces extremely grainy images and was mainly conceived as a format for amateurs to shoot home movies. Not many feature films have been shot on this format. 35mm was the industry standard before digital video. The vast majority of films throughout history have been shot on this format. 16mm, like 8mm, was originally conceived as an amateur format, but its popularity for that purpose dwindled after the introduction of 8mm. However, it continued on for many filmmakers as a sort of compromise between 8mm and 35mm. The images it produces are grainier than the standard 35mm, but not as grainy as 8mm. Because of this, throughout much of film history, it was used on many low-budget independent films before video became the go-to low-budget option. Even today, it's still used by filmmakers who want an extra grainy look for their films. 70mm is an extra-large format that was conceived as being optimal for high-resolution images before that was possible with video, and was mostly used in the past on large-scale epics like Patton and Lawrence of Arabia, and more recently on the films of Christopher Nolan, including The Dark Knight and the upcoming Oppenheimer. Of all these formats, 16mm is, to this day, a go-to format for many amateurs looking to get into analog filmmaking for the first time, for reasons similar to the ones listed previously. It is capable of producing cinematic images almost on par with 35mm, but it's much cheaper. I shot some 16mm in college, and I'd love to get back into it at some point. Thankfully, there are plenty of relatively cheap 16mm cameras on eBay, such as the Bolex H16 and the Krasnogorsk 3. This has been Infodumps. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.